7:36. Good morning to you. Watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
What's your favourite Christmas driving music?
Oh, now you see, I know this, right? Because there's a survey out, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I'm with the number one choice, actually, which is Chris Rea, Driving Home for Christmas. Yeah. I just think there's just something really.
It's come out number one. Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic tune.
And funnily enough, my favourite otherwise would be what's come number two, Fairy Tale in New York.
Oh, really? I'm not a fan.
Oh, I like it. I just love the jingly bit. The words are a bit peculiar, but I like the jingleness.
And I tell you, they've got in there what number is that? Number 5. All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Oh, yes.
I love that. But I'm a soppy old.
And then they always truck out Bing Crosby singing It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas, or White Christmas.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
He's the only person with 2 in the top 10.
Yeah. Mariah Carey, that's Prince William's favourite Christmas tune.
When did he say that?
Last year or the year before.
Oh, I see. Brilliant.
Yeah.
What's your favourite Christmas tune at the moment? Love to hear from you.
Like Chris Rea today.
Who does?
I do.
Yeah. Oh, Christmas. Yeah, you've got that sexy growl.
Sexy growl. I do not feel very sexy this morning, let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Should we have a look through the papers? Let's take a look at the front pages then. Then the Times leads with the misery on the railways every day for a month.
The Mail says, don't fall ill, don't rely on trains and forget sending Christmas cards. Of a week of strike hell, will be holding Britain hostage.
The Telegraph reports 15,000 operations will have to be cancelled because of the first national strike by nurses.
The Guardian accuses the Health Secretary of being unwilling to negotiate with the leader of the Nurses' Union.
And the Express continued their royal coverage this morning, calling Meghan and Harry patronising for attacking the Queen's work in their Netflix series, talking particularly about my brain's not working properly now. Yeah, no, talking about the Commonwealth.
Oh, Commonwealth. Right.
Because they had a go at the Commonwealth.
Yes. The Sun says, now let's make French toast, lads, as they superimpose Harry Kane on it. But the problem with that is...
Yeah, because it's meant to be making the French toast, not Harry Kane toast.
Yeah, and that isn't French toast anyway.
No.
French toast is what others would call eggy bread.
Well,
eggy bread.
Yes, probably, yeah. Or it could be... Yeah, I'm thinking of Melba toast. So, yes, I think French toast is what you're talking about. Yeah. This one I've got it wrong, but their readers will understand. The Mirror just says, yes, we can. As manager Gareth Southgate says his squad can win tonight's game against France.
Let's go inside the papers now with broadcaster Claire Muldoon and political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Good morning, you two.
Morning.
And Kevin, let's start with the Express. Should we, looking at the football, Harry Kane saying we can, well, he's got to say, yes, we can do it. Let's hope he's right.
Well, he's got to believe it, hasn't he?
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah. It's going to be a huge game for England. I think it's quite funny you've got 2 Scottish people on this morning when...
I thought of that.
You hadn't planned that very well, but yeah, I mean, but the Express are pointing out the huge economic...
Very odd picture, because it makes him look like he's got a mullet.
Because of the shadow. Yeah, it does actually, you're right, yeah.
Like he's got a mullet. Very unfortunate.
He probably
he won't like that.
He probably shouldn't get a mullet then, because I don't think he suits it.
No,
he doesn't.
With that picture. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how they ever work this out, but the economic boost from the game tonight, obviously with it being a Saturday night as well, I suppose adds to it. 12.2 million pints, apparently, will be drunk.
Not in Qatar, they won't.
During the game, which is £71.2 million for the nation's ailing hospitality industry. But on top of that, there'll be £23.5 million spent on sportswear, £7.8 million on souvenirs, and £19.7 on TV electricals. So it's as well as being a boost to the mood of the nation, I suppose. It's also an economic boost. But yeah, it's going to be huge. The whole country will
be... A heck of a boost to the nation.
The whole country will be watching it, without a doubt.
Well, no, see, the Star, it's interesting, the Daily Star says that only half the country is going to be watching. That's 30 million. What's the other 30 million going to do? Will you be watching?
Oh, I'll be watching it, yeah.
Will you be watching?
Without a doubt, yeah.
I might tonight, but otherwise I would have.
You're out and about.
I've gone out for dinner.
Oh.
You're on a date.
No.
Stop it, Stephen. Let the lady go for dinner.
She's got that glint in her eye.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just thought, anyway, let's go from that to The Guardian.
Well,
Bully Boy Barclay.
yeah, Pat Cullen is a remarkable woman. I think she's going to be hailed as a new Mick Lynch of nursing, actually, for the union. She's quite, well, no, we like Pat Cullen, actually. She's a very strong, independent thinking, very, capable woman. But the narrative that's been adopted here, I'm slightly concerned about, because she's coming out and saying that the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, is a bit of a bully boy. I don't think terms like that ahead of negotiations in newspapers is actually going to help anything.
She's implying that he doesn't really want to negotiate with her
because she's a woman and she represents 90% of women in the union.
That's one heck of a sort of allegation,
Well,
isn't it?
that's my point. And you would think if you were going into negotiations, you would want to be completely, not obviously, without balance, because obviously you're fighting for something, but you would want to get on the right side of the person that you were wanting to have the negotiation with. Now, Steve Barclay, I didn't even realise that was a health secretary, because he seems to be very well under the radar as health secretary, because we had Theresa Coffey beforehand in Liz Truss's administration. Now, do I agree?
It seems to be odd, because there's been a lot of talk. I mean, they said they would have held off on the strikes if he'd at least come to the table.
And when he did come to the table, he immediately said, apparently, take the money off the table. We are not discussing wages. We are not discussing pay increases. The NHS workers, with the exception of doctors and dentists, across the board had a 3% increase last year when all public service industry had been frozen. So they didn't have anything, public service workers. You're talking about local authorities, teachers, etc., etc. And yet the NHS workers had a 3% increase and also a almost £1,500 increase for cost of living crisis over this year. People in the private sector are not getting these wage increases. Now, we have to be very aware, politically speaking, of what is right and what is wrong. But you have to ask yourself, for people that work in the care industry, and they are so adamant and so under the cosh that they are willing to strike at this time of year, I think everyone has to be open to why and reason why. And it's not helpful to use any narrative of othering. We can't do that, okay? Whether we think it's right or wrong, this is the position that we're in and we have to deal with it.
It's not, you see, I do think when you talk to nurses, and I'm very fortunate, I'm in the hospitals all the time with diabetes, so I get to chat to the nurses that I know.
Yes.
And they say, obviously money is an issue.
Yeah.
Right? But they say it's not just about money, it's about staffing, it's about retention, and it's also about things like the amount of abuse they get from patients, which is unbelievable. And so you have to say there's got to be, well, money is an issue, but because money is part of the retention, the training and the recruitment and retention. They're so understaffed, and I
think that's the thing,
and demoralised.
But I think no amount of money thrown at that would help morale. It wouldn't. It really wouldn't. I think you have to address the deep-seated issues here of we as the public wanting more from the NHS, stroke demanding more for the NHS. And we need to bring in the army to help with this. The head of the security services, military service in this country is not in favour of soldiers having to drive ambulances. The police have said, we don't want to do it. And then you've got the whole legislation of the 111 calls, the 999 calls. Who will be triaging? And what is going to happen? So the winter of discontent, who would have thought it was Great Expectations? Who would have thought it's a rerun right now of a Charles Dickens
NHS,
novel?
of which we are all so proud, and I think we are, of the institution and what it is meant to be.
Meant to be under Nye Bevan.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like a declining industry in itself now, and all of the people working in it, or most of the people working in it, desperately unhappy.
Well, look, Anne, the NHS is a paradigm of virtue. It was, and we were all outside clapping for it, hailing the NHS. The reality is it's never been funded any more than it has been at the moment. Right? So there's something clearly wrong with the management of the money. I've said this before, the IT systems in the NHS are Luddite at best. Yeah. Luddite at best. And, they're employing people like Deloitte, PwC, one of the big fours, management consultancy companies, to come in and help address this. Where are they getting the money from that?
Root and branch reform that it needs, but politically it's suicide.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, any party going into a general election, even discussing, private sector investment or reforms of that nature, instantly the attacks come, you want to privatise the NHS, you want to sell it off to the United States, and and no politician is going to stand up and take that on. So it's so difficult.
What about inventing a sort of cross-party department to run it?
Well, and that's what I said should have happened at the beginning of COVID.
Or would that just be a talking
There should have
point?
been a cross-party response.
Yeah, you would
when
need some sort of
something like this. It has to be, no?
Well, yeah, but they tried that with social care going back over 10 years ago. There was going to be a cross-party agreement on how to deal with the social care crisis, and that collapsed because I think the Conservatives accused Labour of wanting to impose a death tax, which was politically helpful to them in the 2010 general election, if you remember. But it just meant that there was no chance of any agreement, and that was just social care. That was just one part.
I mean, you need a party who gets into government with a absolute landslide.
Well, that was the last one.
Well, it wasn't enough of a landslide, was it? I think
Boris Johnson got the biggest
80,
majority,
but you need like a proper landslide. It'd be like a Tony Blair style landslide.
Yeah.
Where you sort of can say they're going to be in for a couple of terms.
And we're going to do it.
So therefore, if you start it at the beginning, because it's going to take years to do.
Yeah, and I think it probably would need to be a Labour landslide because they are, whatever you think of the Labour Party, probably the most trusted on the NHS than the Conservatives. So they have the sort of kudos to be able to go in well, he has talked about reform, and West Streeting is certainly on the right of the Labour Party, a Blairite, really a real centrist. So I think instinctively he's not averse to major reform.
But the answer isn't just to throw money at it.
No, that's the problem because we've done that.
That throwing money at it is just a complete waste.
It's pointless unless the money's spent properly.
There is no other country in the world that replicates the model that we have.
Yeah.
Well, from that little bit of misery to another bit in the Times, Kevin, looking at rail services.
Yeah, I mean, I think Monday is the only day for the rest of the month where there isn't some sort of industrial action somewhere in the UK. One day, December the 12th. But this is focusing on the railways. Now, obviously, there's a lot of rail strike days coming up in the run-up to Christmas, which is going to cause huge disruption to people trying to visit family and friends and what have you. But the problem there as well is it's not just the days when the strikes are happening, it's the days around them because the trains have to start to wind down and then it takes them a long time to get back up to speed and then they're off on strike again. So yeah, they're saying every single day for at least a month services could be limited, overcrowded or cancelled until at least January the 8th. And you can call it what you like, but it feels like a general strike. It's not officially a general strike, but when you've got so many different unions, we mentioned the nurses, you've got the Royal Mail, no one got their mail yesterday. There's a story elsewhere saying that some Christmas cards won't arrive until February. because of the strikes. It just feels like the country is grinding to a halt.
And who do you blame then? Isn't there only one direction for blame if the country is grinding to a halt? The government.
Well, I
disagree.
Yeah, I think
it's been grind to the halt.
I think the unions. It'll be interesting to see maybe people poll on it maybe in the next few days. But the unions, I think, are taking a bit of a risk with public opinion because up until now, I think the public definitely have been on the union side. But when you start mucking up people's Christmas plans, etc., that will test people's patience and support, I think.
As I was saying earlier on to our guest Lettuce, you can't clump the unions all together. Some seem to be sort of putting forward a quite measured approach. Some seem to be moving towards the militant approach on some of this. I think the unions will take a lot of stick, actually, rather than... The government can't solve everything.
No, they can't, but it's a very weak government, and that's why the unions are really pushing it. And I'll tell you something for nothing. If there was a headhunter out there, they'll be vying to get Mick Lynch in because that man has handled this. He's an amazing orator, I think. And I was in support of the strikes beforehand, but I kind of started to wane, maybe post-summer. And now I'm just thinking, you are cancelling Christmas for people. It is a necessity for people after the pandemic, after what we've been through, for people to get together, and you're actually preventing that. It's not the government, it's you. You're preventing it, and I'm sorry, I'm not supporting it. And I think the court of public opinion will be the same. You cannot live your life by holding people to ransom like this. It's unfair and it's unjust.
Well, he's
That's
called.
that's one for you, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Who do you blame? Where does the buck stop?
Well, it's a question of who blinks first, isn't it? Does the government decide, actually, we're getting the blame for this, so we better do something to make it stop? Or does the government try and hold it out and say, right, it's the unions to blame and hope that the public agree?
Awful.
Well,
It's
look,
just awful.
It's a finely balanced argument, I think.
Get some nicer stories for next time. That's all miserable.
Try our best.
Yeah, we need two goodies.
No doom and gloom with Muldoon until now.
Important to go through them. Kevin, Claire, thank you very much
Welcome,
indeed.
thank you.